Welcome to the Dr. Stacy Show, where we are talking about all things faith, love, and wellness as it relates to kids. I am your host, Dr. Stacy, and today we are going to be discussing resiliency with an amazing guest, Dr. Ashley Tauriac. Dr. Tauriac has a unique journey in medicine. After finishing her medical school at Vanderbilt, she faced overcoming bacterial meningitis before completing her residency. She worked for several years part time as a pediatrician and part time in international medical missions trips abroad. She then moved into several years working primarily speaking, writing, and creating her book about her own story in between the lines of faith and work. Most recently, she's been working with our littles, our newborns, and teaching at Vanderbilt Medical School. When asked, she typically says she's from New Mexico, even though she's been in Nashville for about 20 years. She loves talking to people about her story, her journey, helping people to walk in confidence and excellence at the work that they do, despite setbacks and imperfections. Dr. Ashley, we are so excited to have you with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's great because we've been already doing kind of like our pre-show talk, so like I'm ready to jump in and dive into your
Great.
story. So one of the things I just think about when we were talking earlier, your book, In Between the Lines of Faith and Work, really shares your journey. Talk to our audience about what you experienced and just kind of tell us like what happened.
Yeah. So, as I was going through college and med school, obviously there's a lot of tension between science and Christianity. I had grown up as a Christian and was really kind of struggling with my faith to begin with, what I really believed I should be doing in life. And then I got sick. I got meningitis. I had like a brain injury, got pulled off work, and really was questioning whether or not I wanted to try to be a doctor anymore, whether or not anyone was going to allow me, and whether or not this was God's way of saying, just give up, just leave and go do something else, right? And so really kind of struggled with what's the difference between our faith and work. We like to put them on opposite sides of the spectrum, but really God wants us to kind of walk in between that and to kind of bring them together. And so my book kind of tells the story of how I kind of came to see that in my own life, and kind of how I kind of changed my mindset so that I could see that working as a doctor was not against being a Christian, that they really did work together and really could complement each other well. And I think God makes me better at what I do when I partner with him rather than try and avoid him and do it without him. So yeah.
I love that. And but you know what's interesting to me? You were 25 years old when this was right?
Yeah.
And you raised a really good point. So you're in your residency, and yes, there's I always say, even as a counseling psychologist, right? These lines between science and faith, and like you know, pray about it, or do we use evidence-based treatment? But at 25 years old, you're faced with a medical condition, and you said it took you from medical school at the moment, or your residency at the moment.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, did you have mentors that talked with you through this? How did you get through that like decision to be like, okay, Lord, this is where you want me, and I'm going to still continue in the medical space?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, 25, you could go either way, right? If you're just making the decision by yourself, who knows what's going to happen. And I had one mentor who told me to leave medicine, who said, this is your sign, it's time to go. But thankfully, I had another pastor at my church who said he'd love to teach people who worked in the secular field. And I didn't really understand what that meant, right? Like, as far as I had grown up as a Christian, we just wanted to get people saved, and that was really all God cared about. And really, we went through the story of how the whole Bible is kind of about redemption. It's about really restoring and remaking and creating things right here on earth, that God really cares about the work that we do here on earth. And that means that not everybody's going to go into full-time ministry. That means some people he needs in the hospital, and some people he needs doing things that don't sound on the surface like they're ministry things. And so that gave me a better perspective, that what I was doing was a calling from God, right? It felt like a choice, right? When you talk to pastors, they always say, I was called into ministry. But when you talk to doctors, they say, I decided to go to medical school, right? Like, so it sounds completely different even when we just say it on the surface, but
Mhm.
really it is a calling from God. And
Mhm.
I think getting that perspective helped me at least finish my training. Um, I said, okay, well, I've got the next, I'm just going to do the next 3 years and then we'll kind of go from there, and just focused in and tried to do whatever I could. But yeah, it really was, it took me out of my strength because it messed up my memory. And my
Mhm.
memory is how I'd gotten through medical school, right? And so it made me feel insecure. And I really had to learn how to trust God for my confidence as opposed to trusting how quickly I could bring up the answer and how smart I sounded, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, listen, I can personally relate a little bit to the memory and brain fog. I'm currently with a concussion, and I say I'm like, oh, it's a whole nother animal.
Whole
But I
nother
get
world, yeah.
but right, even to go through it yourself helps you. It's so amazing to me because I always say God puts you in situations, before you're going through it before you're then helping other people through it,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
even as one mentor saying no, it's your sign to leave, and one saying no,
Mhm.
stay in this and see how God can use this,
Mhm.
even as you're making career decisions. Because I think as young people, I talk in my book Love Our Babies Well in chapter 7 about occupational wellness, right?
Mhm.
And we don't we know, we tell our young people, yeah, go to med school, go to college, get it. But what happens when something interrupts that journey and setback, and how do we make decisions then
Mhm.
that also are for our wellness from an occupational? And so you actually did something a little different because then you were kind of bivocational,
Mhm.
worked in two different settings. Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so like I said, I put like pedal to the metal, was like, for the next 3 years, I'm gonna finish residency. This is where God has me. And when I finished that, I was like, okay, that's enough of this. This is tiring. So I actually literally went to my pastor and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I will go anywhere in the world. You just tell me where you need some help. I can do anything. And he said, God did not bring you this far to let you quit now. And
Mhm.
so he would not let me quit medicine is literally what happened, which I think was great. And so I ended up working part-time as a pediatrician, as a general pediatrician, and then part-time for my church, planning medical missions trips, to kind of help him. And I think it was so great for me because it gave me, the rest I needed.
Mhm.
Um, Residency really was a lot of work and trying to get through those hours and trying to just heal, right? Just heal physically. I needed some time not working 80, 100 hours a week. And so that gave me, I think, the encouragement and the time to kind of heal a little bit more and get my footing settled as a doctor, but also really get to see God in a whole nother way. Because missions trips, I just love the way that, you can really see your faith and your work come together really well, I think, on a mission trip. And so I loved being able to take students and other professionals on trips and be able to show them, like, this is what we're doing here. Now I want you to take it back to where you work every day. So,
I
yeah.
love that. We were talking because I do missions as well. And
Mhm.
one of the things, it's really amazing to go to different countries and places, even local missions. But right, using your skills and gifts. I remember one time being on a missions trip with Culture Life Missions, and I'm a therapist. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor,
Mhm.
I do children's VBS. But then one of the nurses came and said, "Hey, there's a parent here that their child is having some challenges in school. We thought you'd be great to talk with this parent." And so you
Yeah,
never know, even on the mission field,
for
where
sure.
God can use your calling and your gifting.
Yeah.
And I know, Dr. Ashley, we were talking beforehand. It was so funny about the different prayers, though, when you wear those different hats.
Yes. So, yes. So on the surface, it sounds like a great thing. I was working as a doctor and working as missions and everything was perfect. And look at all these great stories. But yeah, I think practically speaking, that's not necessarily where my head always was. It was much more of a difficult year than I think it sounds. And what I realized was how different I was walking into each job. I was literally going Monday at the clinic, Tuesday at the at the church, and back and forth. But I would change it. It seemed like I almost turned into a different person from one day to the next because the expectations and the way things had gone down were just completely different. And so I actually took over for a pediatrician, who had left and did not tell her patient she was leaving. I don't remember. I don't know why. And so what was happening is patients were coming in angry that their doctor wasn't there and would just start yelling at me, and they'd be like, "You look too young. Who are you? What are you doing here?" That's literally how the appointment would go. And so I had the whole day Monday would be me trying to calm people down and get things together. And then on Tuesday I would go to the church and they would say, "Let's pray together for $10,000 and for 20 missionaries, and we need like these doctors to come and everything's going to be great." And it would be like all this faith and testimonies and all these great things. And so I would say, like, "Yes, God, I believe and everything's going to be great." And then I'd go back to the office the next day and say, "God, can you please help no one to yell at me?" Because like that was what I needed from the day, right? But I realized like I was the same person, but the way I walked in every day changed completely depending on where I was, depending on the atmosphere that everyone else had created, depending on the expectations everyone else created, and then just depending on the mindset I was walking in with. I was either walking in with fear or I was walking in with faith and excitement.
Mhm.
And I had to really fight to change my day-to-day job, to change my mindset in my day-to-day job. So instead of dreading it and hating being there and constantly being yelled at, that I was walking in confidence in God again. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, easier said than done. But I think many days I was mostly complaining, but it did change the way that I got to live life when I was able to really think that through differently.
Well, and I love that because when we look at our young people, right? So we look at this church concern that we have with young people leaving the church during
Mhm.
college age. And
Yeah.
here you found the church even to be, that sense of strength, that sense of support, your faith, getting you through some of the toughest moments during your college, during residency, and even finding your bivocational profession during that time, right? To say, hey, I started my career, but I also said, Lord, how can you use me
Mhm.
in ministry as a young adult, and also in my profession that I trained in?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit also in your book. What are some of the things that maybe you share? Because I know we kind of joke too that it could be like a midlife crisis book too. So it's not just young adults who should read this, but any of
Yeah.
us who are going through maybe medical things and then right
Mhm.
a career path change. There's so many things that this book can be helpful for. But
Mhm.
what are some of those things that you share in this book that might be helpful for anyone going through those types of transitions?
Mhm. Well, I think the first thing I thought about was we want everything to go perfectly when we think we're in God's will, right? Like
Mhm.
God said, go to medical school, therefore I'm going to go to medical school and everything's going to be great from here. And that's really not how it went. But really, when we look at the Bible, that's not how most of the stories go, right? Like being in God's will does not mean that you have perfect butterflies and perfect finances and perfect health the whole time. God is able to bless us in those things, and God does want us to have success in those things. But sometimes He allows us to have some struggle. And for those who have grown up in the church and just leave the church on Sundays and then don't bring it into their lives, then it's a little bit harder to translate. Like what you're learning here should be able to help you through those valleys, through those hard parts, through those struggles. One, it gives you it one, your faith can help give you a new perspective to be able to see the situation a little bit different. And then two, it just can give you encouragement. Again, studying stories in the Bible like Job and Joseph and David, people who really struggled for a long time, and then God was able to bring great things out of it in the end, does encourage you in those hard spots. Um, Sometimes we do run into things that we do need to turn away, and that is our sign to stop, and that is our sign to lay something down.
Mhm.
Um, but if we can really have a relationship with God, He can kind of make things clear, like, no, I want you to stay for right now, and helps give us the encouragement to kind of keep going through those rough patches. And so I think that's the main thing I tried to think through in my own life and kind of tried to explain in the books as well.
Yeah, and I love that because you think about even the disciples, right? Like they were doing a totally different profession when they met a man named
Yeah.
Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus was like, drop those nets, drop those
Mhm.
carpenter nails. I got something else for you right now.
Yeah.
But I love how you say the idea of when we think of professions, and so I'm going to ask a question. When you kind of told those closest to you, hey, listen, I think I'm going to be a part-time pediatrician and go into
Mhm.
missions part-time. Was
Mhm.
there anyone besides that other mentor? Was there anyone like in your family, anyone looking at you like, what are you doing?
Well, I think I've been a little bit of a weird I was a little bit of a weird doctor to begin with, and so I think, I was like the singing, dancing doctor, like, I had a lot of a creative bent to begin with,
Mm,
so most people said, "Oh, that makes sense, yeah, go use some different gifts and, kind of bring things together in a different way," and I think, it really was, like a joy for me to realize that even though residency was like all medicine all the time, all struggle, when I got to like go into missions and use like a different set of gifts that I had almost kind of laid down completely, it reminded me that God could see me, that God saw the gifts He'd given me, and was able to bring them back in a way that I could still live them out. Right. The mission one of the missions trips I was on, someone was like, "Oh, we don't have anyone to play keys today, and also we need someone to speak at the conference, and also one of the team members is sick," and I was like, I got you. Right, like, and so, and it was such a good reminder to me that like God sees who you are and wants to use those gifts, right? He doesn't mean for you to bury them completely, and that was a good reminder to me that he can bring things together in a way that makes sense even if it doesn't make sense in your head. Right. Yeah.
We always talk about being flexible on the missions trip,
Mm,
right?
mhm. Yes.
Like,
You never
like
know what's
God
coming.
will stretch you, right? You
Yeah.
like you want me to go VBS, then you're speaking, then you're
Yes.
painting a wall, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Doing all those things in one trip.
Mhm.
So we always bring in this topic of wellness, and I love that you're talking about even as a new professional that
Mhm.
you had to think about that balance between your physical wellness,
Mhm.
your mental wellness, even as you talk about the stress of residency and
Mhm.
balancing that and balancing your life, but even the idea of finding balance early in your career. Many young doctors we know and a lot of professions burn out
So hard. Yeah.
they just go 100, 100% full-fledged. And again, it's great. We're happy
Mhm.
that you're excited doctors.
Yeah.
Even that is different when you think
Mhm.
of the medical field and that journey.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, I had such a hard time with this because in medical school, well, and in college, you just do everything, right? Like, you go volunteer here, and you go do your music lessons, and go do your study, and I could keep up with that when I was in medical school. But after I got sick, I had to put in all of these boundaries in my
Mm,
life. I had to just really simplify my life, and it was like, go to work, go to church, go to sleep, go to the doctor. Like, that was my life, and once a month, I would go to dinner with friends. Like, that was how I simplified things. I had to stop volunteering for everything. I had to stop doing lessons and things like that, and so it felt like I kind of lost some of those things that we would typically consider wellness, right? Like, go do more walks in the park and go do this. Like, go we try and put a bunch of additional things on our schedule sometimes and call it wellness.
mhm,
And for me, wellness was actually about like making like reprioritizing my life, and not for forever. It was just like simplifying things during residency. For those 3 years, I
mm,
could only commit to these few things. And since then, I have been able to like pick them back up and again could use them on missions trips or what have you. But I had to lay down some things and kind of be afraid that I might not get them back.
mhm,
But it gave me the time and the space to be able to heal and also be able to reflect. I think that was a big part of what I didn't realize was so important in this wellness journey, right? Like, I didn't realize how angry I was at God for letting me be sick. Like, I didn't realize how frustrated I was with my doctors for the way that we made decisions or whatever. And it was only having the time and taking the steps to actually reflect that allowed me to kind of get through those things and allowed me to kind of heal over time. Um, and so, yeah, wellness looked like how much can you simplify things for just this month, for just this year.
Mhm.
And I think that was the most helpful thing for me in the middle of the crisis, right? Coming out of it, I did start to add in more things, but right in the heart of the battle, I had to kind of take some things off of my shoulders and some expectations off of myself. So
Because
that
those
was part of it.
expectations, ooh, listen, and I love
Yes.
if young people are listening, listen, this is that part, right? Like we have the
Yeah.
expectation that even with, again, an advanced degree, being a doctor, like all
Mhm.
the expectations that we think, and then to have something like that, say, let's reevaluate those expectations. Let's
Mhm.
set some boundaries.
Yeah.
Even the idea of wellness, we often will say, yeah, go walk, go get a massage, go
Mhm.
add things. Well, wellness could
Right.
be, hey, let's clear our schedule for a couple weeks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm with you with the sleep moment because that was when the doctor said with your concussion, sleep more, and I was like, well,
Yes.
say no more.
I got this. Yeah. But yeah, but if you don't prioritize it, if you're trying to
Mhm.
say, I'm also going to go get a massage and I'm also
Yeah.
going to do this and I'm going to do this, then sleep ends up way lower on your list. And so, yeah, I had to put it first and then it started to make a difference.
Mhm, and I'm gonna put this plug in there for sleep, especially with residency and medical school, right?
Mhm.
Talk about like with advanced degrees and graduate programs in general, how sleep becomes right. You're doing papers, you're up, you're
Mhm.
doing clinicals and rounds and all the things,
Right.
and even to have to reset that as you transition into your work life.
Mhm.
That's also an important part of our wellness is making sure that we're getting the recommended hours of sleep and taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
When you think about, because one thing I love when you said earlier about the science side of this and then the faith side of it.
Mhm.
Talk to me a little bit about the mental health piece of this and going through, and how did you take care of the mental health parts of this for
Mhm.
yourself?
Yeah, well, it wasn't honestly my decision, but I'm glad the decisions that they made. So when I did go back to residency, I was required to see a psychiatrist, and my psychiatrist had access to my boss and my work.
Mm,
Um, and so that was really stressful for me on some level, but also really good to make sure that they were watching what I was doing and how well I was doing work and monitoring that we weren't that what I was doing was not negatively affecting patients and not negatively affected me. And so that was set up by the program that I was at, which I thought was so wise. It's probably not what I would have picked, but again, I think it was the best way to make sure that um, he could see the big picture and
mhm.
could help me through the little details.
Yeah.
And then I was required to get a counselor outside of all of that who
Mhm.
had no access to what was happening at work, and was really able to talk with her again about like did I even want to still be in medicine? Was this fight worth
Mhm.
it? And really thinking through that was good. I was talking with someone recently from a wellness side, and she was saying like a lot of our residents were really struggling with the expectations
Mhm.
of residency, and were just questioning how things were going down. And the counselor is the one who told me I should just quit medicine.
Wow.
And she was like, if we're looking at all of your gifts, if we're looking at all of your skills, it sounds like you don't want to be here anymore. You want to leave. But what that did for me was changed the fight. It changed the
Mhm.
fight to I'm going to fight for medicine as
Yeah.
opposed to I'm fighting this medical problem or I'm fighting for myself or what have you. And so that allowed me to kind of keep going. It changed me from like a victim to like
Mhm.
I'm going to fight for this is a fight that I'm in and I'm going to put in my best and do things that way. And so I think that was really helpful in um, residency is hard and I think
Yeah.
like that's never going to go away, but again the way that we think about it and the way that we're
Mhm.
expecting it to go and the way that we're thinking about ourselves in it can determine how hard or how um, enjoyable I guess it is in the process. And that I think really made a big difference in me getting through those years. I used to see myself almost like I was a soldier on a battlefield, right? And would be like, this is the battle. We can
Yeah.
do this. Let's keep going. And that's a large part of how I again, just needed to get through that battle. And that's a large part of how I got through residency as a whole,
Yeah.
seeing it like that.
And I love, even though it didn't feel comfortable being ordered to go to
Right.
therapy.
Right.
I tell people, even therapists in our graduate programs, they actually recommend, they're like, go deal with your stuff before you
Mhm.
start dealing with other people's stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So we're kind of ordered too in our program. And that is key too. And I love that you shared that. The idea that there is that oversight, in programs, because that also helps us to feel that we have support even as we're going through something. Right at the time, it's not the thing that we want to do, or it's
Mhm.
another thing added to our schedule, right?
Yes.
'Cause again,
Yeah.
now I have to go see two more people. That's more time in my schedule that I don't
Mm.
have, and missed all of this. But even the idea of how helpful that was for you. So, Dr. Ashley, if you were to give our listeners maybe some final thought, a final
Mhm.
tip, something that you really want them to hear, what would that be for our audience?
I'd say I'm hoping you're not going through a struggle like I was, but I know life is complicated, and sadly, most of us are. And I would just encourage you to really know that God is on your side. That just because things are not perfect does not mean He's upset or angry or has given up on you. And I think if you can keep that perspective, it gives you someone to battle with as opposed to making you feel more alone. So yeah, if I can help that out at all, feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk through anything. Um, but yeah, just encourage you. You can do this. So hang in there. You and God have got this.
And I love that. Someone to battle with. Absolutely.
Mm.
That. All right. So, Dr. Ashley, we are going to move into our segment of the show. It's our laughter moment. And I always tell folks Proverbs 17:22 says that a joyful heart is good medicine, right?
Yes.
So we're going to see if you can get our Laffy Taffy joke of the day. Now, I tease everybody. I'm going to read the joke. If you got an answer, throw it out. If you're not
Okay.
sure, say you're not sure, and we'll see.
Okay.
I've had two folks so far guess theirs, so
Oh, okay.
we're doing good so far. All right.
Okay.
So here we go. Our Laffy Taffy joke of the day. What do you call a bear with no teeth?
Uh, I'm not good at these. I got nothing. I don't know.
I
I
need to
don't
save
know.
this one for the dentist, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a gummy bear.
Oh, it's cute.
Well,
Gummy bear.
Dr.
That is
Ashley, thank
cute.
you for humoring me. So tell our audience, how can they get in touch with you? How can they get your book? Tell them
Yeah.
all the details of how to get in touch with you and get your book.
Yeah, so the easiest way is going to be to go to my website, Ashley Tauriac at Kajabi. Tauriac's not the easiest thing to spell, but Tauriac. And then you can get my book or contact me or join my email list, what have you. My book is available on Amazon, audiobook as well, if that's helpful. So you can also get it directly there.
That's great. And
Mhm.
so before we go, folks, we're going to do our Love Our Babies Well segment and talk about the importance of resilience.
Mm.
Life will be full of setbacks, and I've often heard that setbacks are setups for your next season. When it comes to being able to see the good in hard circumstances, this is definitely when our faith is taken to another level. I think about the children of Egypt relying on manna. If you think about it, it took faith to rely on an unknown substance, something they hadn't seen before that just appears every day for 40 years. Not one day, not one week, but 40 years. Whatever you are going through today, trust that God has a purpose for it in your life. Take a moment and reflect, not on why this is happening, but why not me? And think about how can God use this chapter in your life for his glory. And I love how Dr. Ashley said to think about God going with you in the battle, not leaving you alone. Thanks, folks, for tuning in to the Dr. Stacy Show. Until next time, keep the faith, love the babies, and pursue wellness.